All right, let's make it happen. Deeper dive. It's Friday, December 21st. That's right. Heading into the Christmas weekend. Dave Locker, Adam Sharp. We got a 10-game NBA slate with you. All right. Pretty happy to be here. Happy to have you with us, of course. Adam, you getting ready for the holidays? Are the holidays more enjoyable or more stressful for you and your family?
Kind of at this point, not really that big of a deal because most of my extended family lives in a different state. So it's kind of just my parents and I get together and do that. But yeah, so kind of not really a big deal anymore.
All right. I have to go to my fiance's aunt's house on Christmas Eve, and then to her cousin's house, and then to her uncle's house.
Yeah, that sounds.
Eve. But it's not
that sounds rough.
Yeah, they got good food and drinks. That's what matters most, right? They got real good food and real good drinks, so it's tolerable. It'd be different if they were serving cheese and crackers all night.
Yeah, good point.
All right, let's jump into it. As always, try and wait till we get a few people in the room before we start rocking. But I figure we can do it. And if anyone doesn't get the information at the beginning, you can always start the video over once it's over and catch whatever you missed from the beginning. 10 games, Adam. Only one game on this entire slate with a spread that is higher than 4.5 points, which makes it pretty interesting. Now, there's also some weird dynamic in that you have two games with a really high total, right? Atlanta, New York at 233. Pelicans, Lakers was at 233, came down to 231.5. But then aside from that, you've got a 214, a 212, a 202, a 209, a 210, a 219. There's a few games, probably 5 or 6 of the 10 that are between two slow-paced teams in what should be a pretty low-scoring game.
Yeah, most of the games have like one or two guys that I'm interested in, and then it's just like everything else is just completely unappealing.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right way to put it. A couple of them, you're hand picking one or two. You're not closing your eyes and picking, where you can do with a couple of these games. So let's hop into it. We'll start with Charlotte and Detroit. This one kind of in the middle, right? Charlotte at home against the Pistons, 4.5-point favorites. That's the only game. Like, there's a couple 4.5s and a 4, and then a lot of 1s, 2s, 3s, a lot more 2s, and then a 12-point spread in the next game. But you got 219.5 total. Hornets are 4.5-point favorites here. Pretty much everyone on both sides, outside of Ish Smith, who's been out, and like Glenn Robinson, pretty much everyone's healthy here, Adam. So at least we don't have a whole lot to wait on.
Yeah, and this is one of those games too that I think there's like a couple of good plays and then just a ton of stuff that I have zero interest in.
No interest in, yeah. So talk to me. Where are we at? Let's start with Charlotte.
So I mean, Kemba, starting on the Charlotte side, like Kemba, really, really site dependent for me. On FanDuel, he's still priced up closer to 10K. On DraftKings, though, he's at 8,600. Josh and I talked on the strategy show this morning, and our early ownership projections have him basically neck and neck with Kyrie Irving. But if that goes one way or the other, then like if Kemba ends up coming in later projections is really low owned, then it would be someone that I'm looking at in tournaments, because I don't think there's a big difference between him, Damian Lillard, and Kyrie. So on DraftKings, I think he's pretty appealing. Right now, I'm getting more Kyrie than Kemba, but that would be something that I look to change if Kyrie ends up being projected for a lot higher ownership. But that's really like the only thing from the Charlotte side that I'm really interested in. Like there's clearly a path for Jeremy Lamb to have a good game and get a bunch of minutes, but we can never be too certain of that. Cody Zeller, I think, is a pretty good point per dollar play, but he's just not someone that we can really count on all that often to really give us a score that we want at $5,000 in tournaments. So Kemba on DraftKings specifically is really like the only thing that I see from the Charlotte side.
For Charlotte, it's Kemba for me, who I think is fine. And then, guys like Jeremy Lamb, the price is coming up. I mean, he's up to 7K on FanDuel, which is kind of tough to get to. 62 on DraftKings isn't bad. I mean, look, he's played 35, 38, 42 minutes in three. Those are 3 of his last 4 games. He played 23 against the Lakers, the game which they lost by 28. But there's no longer any concerns with playing time for Jeremy Lamb, Adam. Whereas before we were wondering, like, are guys like Monk or Bridges or whoever it is, because the rotations are so weird, going to take run away from him. But I think the one positive, at least, even though his prices come up, the one positive is that in a close game, Jeremy Lamb should see 35 plus minutes.
I'm still not completely sold on that, though. I mean, like, even last game, Malik Monk got 0 minutes, and the rotation for Charlotte all season long has just really changed on a game by game basis. So it's still like there's clearly a path for him to get that many minutes. He's done it a few games in a row, like you said, but it's still tough for me to confidently project him to get that much time.
Okay. I have a little bit more confidence in him to get those minutes. The difference is that I still don't think, even if he does, that he's worth the price point. So I don't really know how much difference it even makes. We'll probably have different opinions on the minutes and still end up in the same spot, you know? And as far as Zeller goes, there's a couple other value bigs that I like more than him, and I think I can get at a discounted cost. Point per dollar, Zeller's been fine this year, or point per minute, point per dollar too. I just don't think I want to pay $5K for him on this slate when I know I'm going to be paying above $8 and $9K pretty frequently. On the other side, though, Drummond's faced the Charlotte Hornets twice this year. He's averaging 18.5 points, 17.5 rebounds, 3.5 blocks, 2 steals, 54 fantasy points. I generally hate taking, 2 games against a team this season and saying, oh yeah, he should do this again. But just based on the matchup alone, I feel like Drummond can do this again, because Charlotte, look, not a good rebounding front court. We know that for a fact. You got Marvin Williams and Cody Zeller soaking up the bulk of the run there. He should have every opportunity to feast on the boards here, Adam. It's just a question of whether or not you want to pay for Drummond, although he is under 9K on DraftKings, and I do like his upside in this particular spot.
I do too. The thing that makes it tough for me is that, you mentioned he's under 9K, he's at 8,900, but you have Karl Anthony Towns at 9,300, who I absolutely love and we'll talk about later, obviously. So it's still been tough for me to really prioritize Drummond, just because he's not even my favorite center in that price range, and that's without even mentioning Nikola Vucevic. So it's still just kind of a packed price range at center here, even though it is a little bit too cheap for Drummond. So I have no issue with Drummond. I just have him behind Towns, and I'm getting more Towns.
Yeah, that's fair. I will say, just to get it out of the way early, I have Drummond ahead of Towns, so that's where we differ. I like Drummond quite a bit here. That doesn't mean I'm going to have loads of him. It just means that in terms of the top tier centers, where you're talking about Towns, Drummond, Vucevic, that trio right there, all of whom are very closely priced. $400 difference between the cheapest and the highest on DraftKings, and on FanDuel, where Drummond is the highest priced, you have a $400 difference between Vooch, who's 9K, Towns 93, and Drummond at 94. Where Towns is cheaper than Drummond, sure, I'll take the $400 savings here. I think from an upside standpoint, has Towns had the 70-point games? He has. But really, when you're looking at the median output, or just the mean projection here, Drummond and Towns are not far off whatsoever. And I think Drummond continues, and this isn't to say that, oh, this is why you should have Drummond over Towns. No, but I do want to get your take. I do feel like Drummond continues to get undervalued, in the sense of a lot of people still see him as somebody that, if you play him, he might only give you 22, which has happened before, but it's very rare this season. And foul trouble hasn't killed him. He's averaging 33 minutes per game. So I just think there are some unnecessary concerns when it comes to Drummond on a nightly basis, not just tonight.
Yeah, I kind of feel the opposite. Like, I feel like he's been
really
popular even on slates where I don't really like him. It's like people just keep going to him. Whereas Towns on slates that I think he's like virtually a lock, he's still coming in at really low owned. So I kind of feel like people are more hesitant to roster Towns than Drummond.
That's an interesting take. Very interesting. And you might be right. They might just be hesitant to roster both of them. Are people hesitant to roster Vooch above 9K?
Probably. Like, I don't have the refreshed ownership in front of me, but I would guess that Drummond's the highest owned out of those 3.
Okay. Yeah. And another thing, go ahead.
No, I was going to say the ownership projections earlier, we had Drummond as the highest out of that group.
Let me put my gauges in here. For AirPods. They're not gauges. I'm not a goth, I swear. Yeah, Drummond. And one of the reasons he is right now the highest of them, we have him projected at 16% ownership on DraftKings. Towns at 8%, and Vooch at 7%. I will say though, on this slate, I don't know how much ownership's going to make a difference. Sure, it'll come into play. 16 to 8% sure is significant, but I highly doubt there's going to be any player on this slate unless we get injury news, right? Unless like Davis is out and Randall plays, entirely different situation. But what we have right now, I don't think it's likely that anyone is just ridiculous, astronomically owned on this slate. I really don't.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you there. As far as the Towns versus Drummond, like I have Towns projected for 4 more points, and he's projected for half the ownership. So that's why it's just really tough for me to get to Drummond.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense to me. In terms of projections, I have Drummond projected for an additional point than Towns, which would be another reason why I have him ahead of Towns and you have Towns ahead of Drummond. Anybody else for Detroit, though? Because that's it for me.
Yeah, I mean, Blake's obviously fine. He's not a priority for me. I prefer Drummond, outside of the fact that Drummond's a center and Blake is a power forward. But choosing between the two, I prefer Drummond. But, again, just not prioritizing either one.
All right. Someone mentioned that Drummond's a game time decision. He's probable. I highly doubt he's not going to play. But, of course, that's what we're here to do is let you know if he does or doesn't. And when he does or doesn't, if we get news on that, we'll be the first to let you know, even though chat's usually pretty on point with that. Outside of a few trolls, we have a pretty good chat in terms of breaking news here. You get an asshole here and there, but we got pretty good viewers here. I love you guys. And they do a pretty solid job of keeping tabs on everybody in there. You want to move on to the next one?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. We've got Cleveland and Toronto. The only game, Adam, with a spread above 4.5 points. That's really surprising on a 10-gamer. Raptors are 12-point favorites here. They are also playing their first of a back-to-back. Now, let me just say right now, Kawhi Leonard is probable. The interesting thing is they play the Cavs at home today, where they're 12-point favorites. And I know they've had success against the Sixers this season and obviously in the past, and they're a better basketball team, but they get the Sixers tomorrow in Philly, which regardless of the results this year is still a much less, less easy matchup for sure. So I don't know. Are we going to get some wild news on Leonard today that he doesn't play in this back-to-back? I don't know. And I can also tell you that last time he sat out on a back-to-back tells us nothing because he sat out both of those games and was dealing with an injury that we didn't know about until the second night.
Right. I mean, I have no idea what to expect here because going into that last back-to-back where he sat out both games, they had said or at least hinted that he was going to play both.
They said that in November, Adam, that he was real close to returning.
Right. So I have no idea. I'm glad it's a 7:00 game. Obviously just be ready to jam in a bunch of Van Vliet and Pascal Siakam if Leonard sits.
Well, or if Ibaka sits, man, I have a feeling that and by the way, do you think there were victory laps being taken after Greg Monroe played like 15 minutes of the first half and then finished with 21 minutes?
I was getting a little nervous.
Yeah, me too. 22 minutes, 22. Yeah, I'm thinking, well, that didn't go according to plan. But what's interesting, Pascal Siakam played almost 20 minutes at the 5 in that game. And, which we said could very much happen here. Did I expect it to happen like that, where he'd play like the last 14 minutes of the game at center? No, of course not. But Serge Ibaka's questionable. I'm not saying that Nick Nurse has to, do crazy things to match up with Cleveland, but Larry Nance is a high energy athletic center or big that's playing at center and playing well right now. I think Siakam starts at center because if Ibaka's out, because we have seen Nick Nurse base his center rotation and his starters on matchup before when Ibaka and Valanciunas were both healthy. So would it really be that much of a surprise to see Siakam start at the 5 and the lead-footed Greg Monroe head back to the bench? I don't think so.
I think it would surprise me just because it would throw off the rest of the rotation. Like for the most part this year, we've seen Nurse have guys play one position. And so obviously that changed with Siakam playing the 5, but I'm still expecting him to start at the 4, especially because, Nance isn't really a threat to put pull Monroe out of the paint. Like he can knock down some threes, but he's not like an actually really good shooter. So I'm still expecting Monroe to start, but I'm also not expecting him to play more than 22 to 24 minutes.
Right. And he's not like he's a high volume shooter, Nance, I'm talking about.
Right.
But I still see this as a situation where Nurse could go ahead and plug Siakam into the 5. We'll see. But even if he doesn't, I expect him still to get quality run at the 5 in a good matchup. If Ibaka's out, I'm gonna have a ton of Siakam if Ibaka does not play here, or obviously if Kawhi doesn't play. But this is probably an unpopular take, and I'm playing him either way. But I'd almost like him more if Ibaka sits than Kawhi, because after last game, I have confidence that he's going to get decent run at the 5 closer to the basket, and I really like that with guys like Siakam.
Yeah, no, I mean I completely agree, and I'm expecting. I mean, I'm totally guessing, but right now I have Ibaka out and Kawhi in, just because Ibaka actually dealing with an injury, and it would make sense to just sit him in this one.
Right. Yeah, and they're on they're on a back-to-back here, so it's the first leg, but it's still a back-to-back nonetheless. So let's go ahead and just break it down one way or the other, because this actually has a lot of implications, and then we'll talk about the only viable player in Cleveland. His name's Larry Nance. Let's say Kawhi plays, Ibaka sits. I'm with you. I think that's the most plausible scenario here. What are we doing? We both like Siakam, but where do we go past that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kawhi, assuming he plays, ends up being a really good play without Lowry. Should get, assuming that Cleveland can somehow hang in this game, get around 36 minutes from Kawhi, has a 31.5% usage rate, 17.5% assist percentage without Kawhi or without Kyle Lowry on the floor this year. So, obviously a good spot for Kawhi. The problem for me is just that on DraftKings, you basically still have to compare him to that group of centers that we talked about. I prefer Towns. I prefer Kawhi to Drummond, but he's a little bit more expensive too. So it's kind of tough to actually get Kawhi into lineups for me, especially when, not to say that this game definitely is going to blow out, but there is some risk there combined with the fact that Cleveland just plays so slow. It's tough for me to actually prioritize Kawhi, even though I like him a lot. Siakam, I think, would be the easiest one for me to get to, just because the price tag's appealing. And, like you said, if he's playing more minutes at center, then those should be more productive minutes for him. So I think that he'd be the guy that I'd most likely get to here.
Right. Also, Kawhi is 10-4 on FanDuel and 9-5 on DraftKings. So a big price discrepancy there. And I think he's obviously a lot more viable on DraftKings, where you're getting a discount there, and he's still, at a decent price. I'm with you though. I don't think I have too much Leonard, but we'll see. We had a question in chat. Quamination 643 said, if Kawhi and Ibaka are out, would you consider Chris Boucher? You know what? I would. I'd sprinkle him in there. I'd probably play 10% in tournaments, maybe a little more. If he comes out of the blue and Nick Nurse is like he's going to start today, then I would just load up on him. I'm very willing to take risks like that in a spot like this, because I think Boucher could go out there. If he played 20 minutes, you could see 35 fantasy points.
And he's someone that should get blowout run if this game blows out too. So you have kind of like a backdoor out there as well.
Right. Although, the risk or the blowout chances if Kawhi and Ibaka are out, or Ibaka, I should say, and Kawhi are out, are less.
Yeah, no question.
But they're still a significantly better team even without all of them. Their bench could probably beat Cleveland starters.
Yeah, Josh and I were saying this morning we thought that their second unit's probably better than Cleveland starters.
Probably. By the way, though, I don't know if you've ever watched Chris Boucher or know what he's like. He might be listed as a center in some spots, but I promise you, this is not a hulking, towering big man. He's 200 pounds. He's 6'10", 200 pounds, Adam. So you're not limited to just playing him at the 5, or just at the 4. He's not big at all, actually. 6'10", 200 is pretty small for a big man.
Do you think there's a chance they start him instead of Monroe?
Well, that's what I said. Like if Nurse comes out of the blue and starts him, then I'd have a ton of him. And I don't think it's out of the question. Is it unlikely? Yes, it's not the probable situation, but I wouldn't be shocked I don't think it's the craziest idea. And like you said, yes, Nance isn't a huge offensive threat, but just from an athleticism standpoint and a matchup standpoint, him or Siakam still matches up better than Monroe. I still feel like there's an edge to be had there for the Raptors, but I guess we'll find out. What do you think?
I just think there's a better chance actually that he starts at the 5 than Siakam, just because when you start Siakam at the 5, it just messes up like everything. Whereas you could just bench Monroe and start your other center.
And especially if Kawhi's out. If Kawhi's out, I would 100% not expect Siakam at the 5. I was saying if Kawhi played and just Ibaka was out, I could see it. But if both of them are out, I don't see how you could do that and have a decent rotation, at the end of the quarters when you've got your bench in there. But I guess that's it for Toronto. I don't want to pay for Fred VanVleet. Do you?
Not particularly. Like if he gets in some lineups, that's fine, but certainly not someone that I'm going to have a lot of.
And again, let's say Kawhi Leonard is somehow ruled out, then it's a different story. And it's a different story with everybody.
Right. If you have like Kawhi out and Lowry out and Ibaka out, then it's just jam in these Toronto guys.
Yes, 100%. Anything on the other side of this game? We can talk about Nance here because he's the only one I want to talk about. I mean, you can talk about whoever you want, obviously, but
yeah, no, I mean, Nance is the only one that I'm really interested in here. The price tag obviously is coming up a bit, but he's just so much more productive when he plays center, and he should still play around 34 minutes as long as Cleveland can hang in this game, averaging about 1.15 fantasy points per minute when he plays at center this year. And you get a higher usage rate from him, you get more assists, you get more rebounds. And Toronto, granted it's a different front court right now than it has been for most of the month, but Toronto has actually allowed the second most, they're tied with the Wizards, second most offensive rebounds per game over the last month. So certainly something that, would work in Larry Nance's favor. I think that he's, a pretty high upside guy. He comes with plenty of risk, but, certainly could do well here.
Yeah, I see it. To me, Nance is, so check this out. Since Tristan Thompson went down, right? 5 games. Nance is averaging 10 points, 11 rebounds, 6.5 assists, 2.4 steals, 1.2 blocks, and 41.1 fantasy points across 33 minutes per game. And he's only started a couple of them. Over that span, Adam, 28% assist rate, 18% rebounding rate. You can't ignore that. You just can't.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree. Where it gets interesting for me is I think like Nance is 6,700, Pascal Siakam 63.
Right.
It's kind of tough for me to play Nance over him.
It is, well, especially given the matchup. But Siakam could become a far less of a priority depending on how the injury news shakes out in Toronto too.
Yeah, no question.
So it's good to have alternatives is all. Anyone else, or should we move on here?
No, next game.
All right. And we can obviously circle back to these games if news breaks. When news breaks out, we break in. Don't worry, we got you. New York Knicks, Atlanta Hawks, 2.5 point spread. Knicks are favored at home. 233 total, highest on the slate. It was the second, now it's up to 233. Makes me think that we could be getting some injury news in Los Angeles between the Lakers and the Pelicans, hopefully soon. That line and spread have moved a little bit over the past hour, but the Knicks are 2.5 point favorites, 233 total. Let's go ahead and talk first about this Knicks squad. We've got some really interesting plays, Adam, and I don't know where you stand on them, but I'm not against, and it is the first time all season I think that I would even consider paying for him. I'm not against Moutier. I feel like Fizdale is really starting to place some faith in him. You're not losing minutes to Trey Burke. Trier is out. I don't know. And you're facing the fastest paced team. Do you know he leads the Knicks in usage and assist rate since the start of December?
Yeah, he's been playing surprisingly well. You mentioned Fizdale's trust in him, or at least perceived trust in him. It is worth keeping in mind that even when Moutier was playing those, 16, 18 minutes as the backup point guard, Fizdale had come out and said that he envisioned Moutier being the starting point guard eventually, and that he was basically his guy, and it was just a matter of time. So, right. I don't necessarily think this is just like a flavor of the week where Moutier's getting the run right now and it'll stop anytime soon.
Well, you've got Moutier You got Hardaway, whose usage is down. Serge Ibaka is out. Look at that. We're getting news. Here we go. Serge Ibaka is out. Almost right on cue, but not quite. We'll take it, though. Let's hope that any news confirming Leonard active or inactive will be followed up shortly after this. It should be. Talk to me about the Knicks, though.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually my favorite game on the slate when you factor in pricing. It's obviously scary counting on guys from the Knicks or the Hawks, but it's just a game that should lend itself to plenty of fantasy points with, two inefficient teams that play fast and don't play a lot of defense. So, you mentioned Moutier, obviously a great matchup for him. If we can get anywhere between 32 to 36 minutes for him, close to a 26% usage rate and the 25% assist percentage over the last month, I think he comes in as a really good play. Ennis Cantor is in an absolutely phenomenal spot on FanDuel and DraftKings both. He's, pretty inexpensive, and Mitchell Robinson's still out. There's even last game, Cantor played about 29 minutes. He lost like 4 minutes to blowout. So still, I think 33, 34 minutes is a pretty reasonable projection for him. No reason to think he doesn't do well in the spot. Hardaway, I don't have any confidence in, but he at least has some upside. Kevin Knox should play 36 minutes again. There's a million different places to go on this Knicks team.
Yeah, there certainly are. And I it's strange, but I have interest in Emmanuel Moutier. I do. The numbers right now, I don't have to like a guy to say, all right, I don't want to ignore these numbers, right? 26% usage, 28% assist rate since the start of November, almost 32 minutes per game over that stretch. You mentioned Fizdale has wanted him to be the guy, right? They traded they trade him or pick him up. It would have been a trade, I think.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think it was a trade.
Unimportant. He's there. Fizdale, they like him. And I'm not saying Fizdale was like, oh, he trade for him. What I'm saying is they picked him up, and now he's getting the run, and deservedly so. He's playing well. The Hawks lead the league in pace, 106.6 possessions per 48. It's a big pace-up spot. They allow the highest three-point percentage in the league. They're 26th in defensive rating. No team allows more points per game than the Hawks. So, yeah, even the lowly Knicks can put up decent numbers here. I like it. Atlanta, too. Point guard defense, you're looking at Trae Young here. I mean, man, this is a good spot for Moutier, and I may actually pay for him here. But I agree with Cantor, too. He was on pace to see far more minutes than that. The fourth quarter devolved into a massive blowout, and he only played 29. So those are my two favorite guys. I think you're getting to a point, though, with Knox, where that price is making it a little tougher on a 10-game slate because he relies so heavily on scoring and rebounds a little bit. The peripherals really aren't that great. Vonleh is still, I think, cheap enough. He played 36 minutes last game, and it's another pace-up spot. And there's not just one or two options on the Knicks that could play well. I guess the question is how many are you comfortable playing in the same lineup?
I mean, I'm probably capping them at like 2 per lineup since it's a 10-game slate and there's plenty of spots. Outside of, if I were game stacking, obviously you can go like 3 and 2 or something like that. But, in general, I have it capped right now at 2. I do want to point out with Vonleh, he played huge minutes last game, but he did get some extra run in that first half with, I think it was Cornette picking up really quick fouls when he came in. So then Vonleh subbed in for him where he doesn't normally come in. So I still think Vonleh probably projecting for like around 32 minutes is probably the best bet.
I agree. Seth says, how do you factor in the fact that Moutier sucks, Laffy? Usage and opportunity. That's how. Yeah, it's not a bad game. I like this team from a fantasy standpoint, of course. Chat mentioned he's traded for a second rounder. All right, so yeah, they got him for free. Kyle Geis says, Laffy, will Lonzo ever hear you say those words about him? Meaning, I won't ignore the good numbers. Well, if he starts putting up good numbers, sure. Or if LeBron's out tonight. But we're getting the team healthy, and that's a whole different conversation that we'll have later in the show. What about the Atlanta side of the ball, Adam? John Collins has been an absolute stud. This kid, second year, putting up huge numbers. You look at him since the start of this month where he really started getting those minutes. 29.5% usage, 22.5% rebounding rate. Even got a 10% assist rate, 1.36 fantasy points per minute if you take Taurean Prince off the floor. Man, he's been good. Instant double-double, basically.
Yeah, he's been really good, and the minutes have been consistent too, which is saying a lot for anyone on Atlanta this season.
Right.
He's really been the guy that you can count on to go out there and in competitive games pick up 34, 36 minutes. It's obviously a perfectly fine spot for him. The price tag's elevated enough to where it's not like it's a core play for me, just because there's a lot of guys to play on the slate and he's relatively expensive, but he is my favorite guy from Atlanta. Really, like the spot for him. I like him a lot. So getting, some John Collins is certainly something that I'll be looking to do.
Yes, me too. And I don't think he's overpriced. Now, the question is, what's going on with Julius Randle? Because on DraftKings, they're very similarly priced. And I still have Randle ahead of Collins, but that doesn't mean you can't play both of them. They're
Right.
both good plays. They're both in the highest scoring projected games of the night. They both have good matchups. So it's not really a one or the other type of deal here. And I think both are very viable. Collins has just been too good. I think someone in chat the other day was like, yeah, I told everyone not to play John Collins. And I'm thinking, this guy got in early foul trouble and as a result played only 25 minutes and still had 41 fantasy points. And if you told me Collins was going to get in foul trouble and give me 41 fantasy points, like, thank God, because we've seen things go a whole lot worse when these young guys get in foul trouble. Jaren Jackson, Mitchell Robert, Wendell Carter, so many of them.
Yeah.
Anywhere else in Atlanta for you?
It's not as appealing for me as the Knicks are. If you're game stacking, obviously you can go to guys like Trae Young. Dedmon is okay, but the price tags I think are just a lot more correct than they are for the Knicks. I will say Jeremy Lin as a tournament play on DraftKings at 3,800. Obviously the minutes are really volatile because he doesn't really play alongside Trae Young, but I just think that the price tag's cheap enough and he's so productive when he does play that there's certainly, a lot of like tournament winning upside for Jeremy Lin at 3,800.
Yeah, I don't disagree either. We've seen, Lloyd Pierce is not going to hesitate to yank Trae Young if Jeremy Lin comes in and is playing better. We've seen that be the case. I'm with you there. Okay, quickly. Trae Young on DraftKings because their prices are so close. Trae Young, 6,300. Emmanuel Mudiay, 6,200. Go.
I have way more Mudiay than Young.
So do I. It is terrifying.
Yeah.
Noah Vonleh or Dwayne Dedmon, $300 difference. Dedmon 59, Noah Vonleh 56.
Vonleh.
Okay. And both have center eligibility on DraftKings. John Collins or Enes Kanter?
Enes Kanter.
Okay. Interesting. I think I might have a little more Collins.
He's just 800 cheaper.
Right. I mean, that's a much bigger price difference than the others, but it was the only one I had to compare.
Yeah. Also, Jeremy Lin is not surprisingly $10 on Yahoo.
That is not surprising. I'm surprised he's not $8, $2 less than minimum salary. But hey, guess what? Yahoo's still doing it. They're still doing these massive overlay contests. The NFL $1 Million Baller, $250K overlay. They're running this one again on Sunday. $1 million prize pool, $250,000 in overlay, $20 entry. I had a lot of good results with that one. I cashed 10 of 10 because it's a 10 max entry, which is also really nice. You can't 150 it, and if you're a low stakes player, you don't have to worry about that. And then tonight, man, for basketball, you've got the 200K baller with 50K in overlay, $10 entry, 10 max, 100K baller today, $5 to enter. So they're just upping the contests every day. $25,000 overlay on that. And then even the mini ballers, $1, 20K prize pool with 5K overlay. And, even first place, I think, what is first place on this one? $2,000. So they got some awesome, they got some good contests. And the Christmas Day baller. How about this? $1 million, $1 million prize pool. It's basically the exact same thing as the NFL contest. It is. It's the same exact format, structure, everything, except it's basketball on Christmas Day, one of the best slates of the year. So if you haven't checked it out yet and you haven't gone to Yahoo, do so and use Awesemo code when you sign up, AWESEMO. When you sign up, you'll get a $30 deposit bonus on any deposit, $30 or more. So there's really no reason not to use it or not to even play these contests because they're just giving away money. I'm not saying you're going to win it all or win every time, but in terms of percentage, it's much better than any other contest you're seeing right now. So while they're running these, I'm going to keep playing them And if anyone's wondering, overlay just means the prize pool's larger than the entry fees, or basically Yahoo's taking a guaranteed loss on it. As they call it, a management fee. They're not charging the management fee on it. So hop in there. We'll talk about some pricing and help you out along the way. AWESEMO Awesemo. Sign up, $30 deposit bonus on deposits $30 or more. Adam, Brooklyn and the Indiana Pacers. Brooklyn, what do they won? 6 or 7 straight now? It's getting out of control. I thought they'd lose to Chicago, but they didn't. They keep it rolling. They're 2.5-point dogs against the Pacers, 209.5 total. I want to start with Indiana and ask you about Oladipo, who, since he's returned, has had 3 bad games and 1 good game, really good game. But he's down to 8,100 on DraftKings. He's down to 8,300 on FanDuel, and he's facing a Brooklyn team that, despite playing better, still has plenty of holes in their defense. What are your thoughts here on Indiana?
Yeah, I mean, I think Oladipo is the most appealing player in this game for me. The price tag clearly is just too cheap for what we expect out of Oladipo on a game-to-game basis. I know he's been struggling in a couple of games recently, but I don't want to put stock into that, especially when you're talking about the price tag, basically free falling. The only thing that is keeping Oladipo out of a lot more of my lineups is DeMar DeRozan's price, which obviously we'll talk about him. So that's like the only negative for me on Oladipo, is that I not really getting 2 shooting guards in that price range, or 2 guards in that price range. And I do prefer DeRozan, but I think the price tag is just way too cheap for Oladipo.
So do I. And we will get to DeRozan, who I love. He was the top shooting guard I talked about today in the deep dive. By the way, if you want to check out the deep dive, you want to check out all of our content, just use Deeper Dive promo code, bottom right corner, when you sign up. Make sure you select the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, because you get it all for free for an entire week and you don't have to do anything. Just go to the homepage, click join now, use Deeper Dive, one word, and you can check out all of our articles, Awesemo's rankings, the projections, the lineup builder, Fantasy Cruncher, and everything else. So just a quick plug there that'll help you out if you want to check it out. Deeper Dive, one word. Use that when you check out. But yeah, I talked about both of them today in the article, Adam, and why not? They're both cheap. They both have 60+ fantasy point upside, but Oladipo has not looked great since returning. Even his usage has been down a little bit, but I think okay, Kawhi Leonard's playing, by the way. Kawhi Leonard is active. I think this is still a good spot for Depot. As you pointed out, DeRozan, yes, like him more, but I do think we still, even since he's been back, he hasn't played well, but still dropped to 57 fantasy point game. It's not like Oladipo's forgotten how to play basketball. So I just think he's too cheap. Outside, is there anything else here? I mean, I guess Rondae Hollis-Jefferson is cheap on the other side, super volatile, but is there anything else in this game you even like?
Not really. I mean, I like the spot for Miles Turner. I like Miles Turner, but the price tag has come up enough to where it's just, I'd be lying if I said that I can prioritize him over even centers in his price range like Cantor and Nurkic. And then, on the other side, you always have that monster ceiling for D'Angelo Russell. There's no doubt about it. But Indiana's a really slow team that plays really good defense.
Yep.
So it's, again, if I get some Russell in my lineups, cool, because obviously he can go for 50 in any spot. But, just not someone that I'm prioritizing.
Yeah, 10-game slate, I don't think you need to. Plus, it's happened so often lately where Dinwiddie ends up being the dude. It's not to say they both can't have good games. They can, but there's no question that when one of them has a big game, oftentimes the other doesn't. And it's, just look at it. Look at their games, compare them to each other. It's really difficult to pick which one is going to be the one to have the big game every night.
Right. And that's why when they're similarly priced, I just go to Russell because he's the one that I think has more volatility and has a higher ceiling. But it's a tournament play. And if I get a decent amount, then that's fine. Like, I'm not going to cut back on him, but I just kind of don't expect to have a ton.
Any interest in the front court for Brooklyn?
Not really. Jared Allen's price is somewhat appealing at 5,100, but it's just such a good center position today in the mid range and at the top that I don't think I'll end up getting much.
All right, man, everyone's sick in the league. Chat just mentioned that. I was thinking the same thing, man. It's just so strange. Yesterday, half of Dallas was sick. You got the Lakers sick. Anthony Davis, has diarrhea or something, leaves, comes back to the bench, is like, oh, dude, You know that feeling, right? Where you're like, yep, I'm not done. Runs back to the locker room. He sits on the toilet for like 20 minutes to make sure. He's like, okay, I got 12 minutes for halftime. I got the rest of the second quarter. Hopefully I should be back to start the third. And he wasn't. Took him like 6 more minutes to get the job done. Then he plays 18 straight minutes. Whatever. We'll talk. That might have something to do with our 24 days of giveaway, the comment that you leave. We may be, now, I'm not asking you about your bathroom experiences, but I have a good one that I think we can have some fun with. Don't worry. It won't be vulgar. It'll be family friendly enough. Family friendly enough. We'll get there at the end of the show, but for now, we got to talk about Chicago and Orlando. Adam, the Bulls 3-point dogs here at home. Orlando favored by 3 points on the road. Vooch is back and healthy. 202.5 total, the lowest on the slate. You look at that. You got two teams that don't exactly play at a lightning fast pace. Chicago and Orlando playing at bottom 10 paces this season, expected to be a low-scoring game. Chris Dunn's prices come up. What do you make of this game as a whole? I don't really want to spend too much time on both sides because I don't think we need to. So why don't you go ahead and just break down if there's anyone from either side that you're prioritizing or you think is a decent play all around?
Yeah, I mean, I think Chris Dunn's still a decent play. You're still looking at, a 26 to 27% usage rate. Should play around 36 minutes, especially that'll be solidified if Cam Payne is ruled out. He's questionable right now. So I still like Dunn. It's just that, like you said, Orlando plays slow and they've actually been good defensively. So, kind of like in D'Angelo Russell territory for me, where I'll probably get 10 to 15%, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't feel the need to have a bunch more. On the Orlando side, I love the spot for Vooch, but again, like you're probably going to get 32 minutes from him in a really, really slow game. It's tough to put him ahead of Karl Anthony Towns, or really even Drummond in what's a more appealing game. So if I get some Vooch, that's fine. I think that probably the most appealing guy from the Orlando side for me is DraftKings, specifically Jonathan Isaac at $4,100. No Jonathan Simmons tonight, just helps to solidify his minutes. I think you get 32, 34 minutes from Isaac in, a pretty nice spot. So he's actually the guy that I'm getting the most of from the Magic.
Anything else in this game?
Nope.
All right, let's move on. We had a good question from Andrew in chat. We'll get to that here.
The most appealing guy from the Orlando side for me
at home
is DraftKings, specifically Jonathan Isaac at $4,100.
Caleb Swanigan
no Jonathan
is
Simmons.
Available to play, just so everyone knows. Important breaking news there. We had a question first, just before we move on. Somebody said that Dunn or Rose on Yahoo. And I think this is a fair question, not just on Yahoo, but kind of everywhere, because if you look at their price points, they're very similar, and they have been. Dunn is $18 on Yahoo. Rose is $19. Their prices have not changed since Wednesday. And then on DraftKings, Dunn is coming in at 73. Rose is 72. And then on FanDuel, I know different positions, but Dunn is 75 and Rose is 73. So very, very similarly priced with similar projections. Who do you have over the other?
I actually have Dunn higher, which I think is probably not where the field goes, but I have Dunn projected for a couple points more than Rose, which, in tournaments, if he's going to be lower owned, that makes me like it even more.
Yeah, I think they're both going to be low on. That's a spot where, as I was talking about earlier, I don't even think it's going to make a big difference, honestly. But we'll see. With the price hikes, they're no longer the flavor of the week. I think you'll see some of that shine taken away from them, and you'll see it in the ownership. But we'll see. Boston and Milwaukee, Adam. Boston down Marcus Morris, down Al Horford, down Aaron Baines, who I've never seen somebody break their hand and get surgery so quickly. Like, he was out, and then 20 minutes later, it's like Aaron Baines will have surgery. It's like Aaron Baines had successful surgery as we go into halftime. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But he only played 2 minutes, and I'd be lying there if I said I don't have some. I'd be lying if I said I didn't have any interest in Robert Williams. I know you're not going to rack up 5 steals every game, or 5 blocks every game, but just throwing it out there, he had 5 steals in 24 minutes, then 1 in 10 minutes, then 5 blocks in 16 minutes, 2 in 14 minutes, 3 in 26, 2 in 8 minutes. Like, this guy is a legitimate shot blocker. So no, I'm not projecting him for 5 blocks, but I can say that he is a good shot blocker, and I expect to see that continue. He's averaging 6.4 blocks per 36 this year. Per minute, he's been solid. And Kyrie Irving, Dan Stratford actually sent me this link earlier today, who we do the early bird with. Actually, Kyrie Irving lobbied for more minutes for Robert Williams because he likes playing with him out there, likes someone to lob to. And I think Brad Stevens is beginning to lean more towards Williams than Daniel Tice. So cheap guy on a night where right now there isn't a ton of sub 4K value.
Yeah, I like, or I have some interest in whichever of those guys starts between Tice and Robert Williams. I don't have interest in whichever one comes off the bench, just because I do expect this game to go small, at least at some point, with Giannis playing the 5. And I don't think either of these guys are going to be on the floor for that. So I'm not expecting a combined 48 minutes from Tice and Williams. I expect whoever starts to get more minutes. So obviously waiting on that lineup, but I'll have interest in whichever one starts.
All right, interesting. These guys aren't that big, though, in terms of like height.
No, but I think that you see like Semi get minutes there if against Giannis.
All right. Yeah, it's tough. They're depleted, but it doesn't mean they have no one, and we've seen this before. But also Marcus Morris is out, so this does still make a difference. We'll see. But I think Brad Stevens is leaning towards Robert Williams. We'll see what happens once we get a starting lineup. But yeah, Robert Williams, even on a per minute basis, is he going to be taking a lot of shots? No, he's not. But the shot blocking, the rebounding abilities, I care about that more for a value center than I do than anything else, because the putbacks will come. The putbacks will happen. Whereas with other stuff and scoring, it's unpredictable and volatile. Rebounds and a really good shot blocker, generally speaking, you can get that each night. What else are we doing here? Do you like Gordon Hayward with Morris out? What about Irving? Start wherever you'd like.
Yeah, I like Irving a lot. He's still reasonably priced. I think he's like 9,100 on FanDuel. He's 87 on DraftKings. And we've just seen him be a lot better lately, averaging 1.3 to 1.4 DraftKings points per minute over the last month. He's got about a 32% usage rate. Horford and Morris being out certainly should not hurt in that regard either. So yeah, I'm getting a lot of Kyrie. I like him quite a bit. I think Hayward's too cheap as well. I don't think he necessarily gets a ton more minutes with Morris out, but it certainly helps to solidify him at least around 30. Potentially, if he's playing well, gets a couple more. But the price tag can come down. And I'd mentioned when Horford first went out that we actually see a pretty big spike in Hayward's assist percentage when Horford's not on the floor, which makes sense as a big that can, or not a big, but a wing that can facilitate. I think that helps him out as well. So I like him. I like Jason Tatum. I think that he picks up a few more minutes with Morris out, probably plays around 36 instead of 32. All three of those guys are showing up in a pretty decent amount of my DraftKings lineups.
Yeah, me too. With Gordon Hayward, just to talk about what you mentioned in terms of the assist rate, 27% assist rate with Horford and Morris off the court in 185 minutes this year, and an 11% total rebounding rate. So, he's got like a 20.5% usage rate, which isn't high, but the peripherals have looked real good with them off the court. 1.12 fantasy points per minute. But then consider the fact that we've got him coming off the bench too, Adam. He's playing between 10 and 13 minutes a game with Irving off the court as well. So you're also getting a 25% usage rate when Irving's off the court for Hayward, 28% assist rate, and again, 1.12 fantasy points per minute. So, you've got kind of the best of both worlds, where he's going to get some run without Irving, and he's going to get all of his run without Morris and Horford. So I get that he hasn't been a huge fantasy option or stud this year, but I do like Hayward here. We had a question about Tatum. Any love for Tatum? It's tough. I think the reason, and I don't want to get your answer on this, Adam, the reason that I have more interest in Hayward isn't because I think he's a better fantasy producer, but I'm still getting a $700 discount on DraftKings, and I like that $5,400 price point on Hayward.
Yeah, exactly. And you have, Pascal Siakam in that same price range as Tatum. So I like Tatum, but I'm getting more Hayward just because he is cheaper. They're both, fantasy point per minute guys. I think Tatum plays 5 to 6 more minutes, but I think that the savings just.
All right. Did I lose you?
Am I still here?
Now you are. All right. You clipped out on me for a second. Thought we were going to have some problems. I agree with you, though. At power forward, would you rather have Tatum or Nance?
I think it's really close. Where Tatum's like $600 less, I would lean Tatum.
Okay. What about Milwaukee here? Any interest?
Not a ton. I mean, obviously Giannis is Giannis, but I'm finding myself, because there's not a ton of great value, at least as of right now, I'm finding myself more getting to like that Karl Anthony Towns range than I am getting all the way up to Giannis. Especially with Julius Randle being probable, it's cut back on my Anthony Davis as well. So as of right now, I'm not really getting like all the way up to that price tier, which it's scary. But I think there's enough options on this slate that have massive upside that I don't really need to either. So I wouldn't talk anyone off of Giannis. I think it's a perfectly fine spot. Boston has been struggling in terms of rim protection, with the exception of Robert Williams lately as well. So a spot where Giannis certainly could have some success. I just haven't been getting that high up.
I don't think I can do it either. If I see, we say this a lot, kind of, if you were to see Giannis in a winning lineup, I don't think any of us would be surprised. But at the same time, it's tough. There's so many players between 8K and like 9,500 that all have that 60 plus fantasy point upside. I'm not saying they have Giannis upside, but is it worth right now, based on what you just mentioned, real cheap value not really being there? Is it worth going to Giannis and then rolling the dice on some really cheap guys when Giannis isn't in the greatest spot? I think you're going to need a really big game from him to make that kind of stars and scrubs spot work, or even to fit him in. And I don't know if it's the best approach tonight, at least not right now.
I think basically if you play Giannis and you get like 60 to 65 points, it's obviously not the end of the world, but it's probably actually putting you in a hole compared to what some of the like 9K guys are most likely going to do.
Right. Like if you got 54 from Drummond,
Right.
like that's probably better than 65 from Giannis on this slate, because he's 11K on DraftKings. He's on FanDuel, you're paying 11.7 for him on Yahoo. You've got Giannis at 49. He's the second highest priced player. I agree with you there, man. The question I mentioned from Andrew, I forget your last name, please forgive me, in chat was, you have any interest in DJ Wilson as a low-key pivot? 24 and 26 minutes over his last two games, averaging 22 fantasy points there. Ersan Ilyasova just had surgery. I think he's like an eye socket or something. I forget what it was. Fractured nose. Do you have any interest in a DJ Wilson here?
I don't. I know the last couple of games have been good, but I just still have trouble actually projecting him for that many minutes. I have him projected for like 18 to 20 right now, and it just doesn't. I don't get to him.
Okay, fair enough. But I will say this much, Andrew, if you wanted to plug him into like a stars and scrubs lineup and see what you could do in tournaments, it's not crazy, but not a priority guy. Very low usage as expected, has a career rebounding rate of 9%. So nothing really stands out to you, even on a per minute basis. It's hard to think that he's going to be a stud. But hey, he's really cheap. If you wanted to run him out there in a couple, go for it. But I definitely wouldn't hitch my wagon to him and play him everywhere. I could say that much. Anything else in Milwaukee, or should we move on here?
I'm good moving on.
All right, let's move on then. San Antonio and Minnesota, 221 total. Actually down to 220, I think, but still same thing. 220 total. Spurs are 4-point favorites. Man, the Spurs got off to a bad start, and I said some things I probably shouldn't have. Never doubt Greg Popovich, right? I should have known, but I still don't think they have any chance in terms of like getting anywhere. But do you know what? Okay, of the last 4 games that they won, do you know what their average margin of victory is, Adam?
Probably like 18.
33.
I think they've been in a blowout one way or the other, probably like in 90% of their games over the last month.
It is crazy. It is absolutely absurd. They just beat Orlando by, what was it, 39, I think?
Yeah.
I think 39 points. They beat the Sixers by 27. They beat the Clippers by what, 25, 30, 38. I don't know, some like just ridiculous numbers. You're right. So many blowouts, win or lose, but mostly win lately. DeMar DeRozan has lost minutes as a result of those blowouts. So is Rudy Gay. We'll talk about both of them here. And DeRozan's price has come down a lot as a result. But this is still a guy with a 30% usage rate, still someone with a near 30% assist rate, still somebody that has proven countless times that he can post 60 plus fantasy points. This price to me is just way too cheap in this game that I do hopefully think stays close. It should.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, Minnesota's been better defensively since adding Covington as well, but the price tag on DeRozan just takes all of that into account. And it's just really hard for me to pass it up. I mean, he's averaging 1.12 DraftKings points per minute over the last month. He should play between 36 and 38 minutes as long as the game stays competitive. He leads the team in assist percentage. He leads the team in usage rate. It's just impossible for me not to really, really like DeRozan here.
Me too. I even think Rudy Gay is fine. If you look at Rudy Gay's numbers, he's suffered because of the blowouts too, Adam, but he's still averaging 35 fantasy points over his last 8 games. Maybe he only has a 23% usage rate, but he's rebounding in a 13% clip. He's averaging 2.1 stocks per game. So that's really just kind of buoying his production. It's keeping his fantasy totals up, even in some of these blowouts. I don't think Gay is the craziest play here. I don't hate him. Obviously, I like DeRozan more, but I expect this game. I hope it stays close. It should. And Rudy Gay is still a discounted price too, so I'm not off of him. But DeRozan easily my favorite play from the Spurs. Any other thoughts on this San Antonio team before we talk about the Wolves?
Yeah, if you're multi-entering, don't be afraid to kind of mix and match Bryn Forbes, Derek White, Marco Bellinelli. They're all sub 4K on DraftKings. I have them all projected for like 20 to 22 points. There's a pretty decent chance that one of them has a game where they eclipse that. Your guess is as good as mine at which one it is. But I think that with the lack of value out there, those guys all individually, do give you a chance to get, a pretty good game for a cheap price tag.
All right, that sounds good to me. Let's break down Minnesota, Adam. 4-point dogs on the road. What do we have here?
Karl Anthony Towns, really the guy that the guy that I'm mainly interested in here. Should play 38 minutes if it's competitive, even if I project him for 36 minutes. Without Teague or Jimmy Butler on the floor this year, you have a 28.8% usage rate for Towns, almost a 20% rebounding percentage, almost an 18% assist percentage. Just been incredibly productive. The price tag's down. San Antonio, they're not a fast-paced team, but they haven't been good defensively this year either. And I just think that, Towns is one of the best plays on the slate with, tons of upside, should play a lot of minutes as long as he's not in foul trouble. So he's the only guy from Minnesota that really stands out for me. Then, obviously Derrick Rose is okay if you get some of him. Josh Okogie could play anywhere between 26 and 32 minutes at a really cheap price tag. With Wiggins and Towns and Rose healthy, then it's not a spot that I expect him to be productive on a per minute basis. But at only $3,300, there's certainly merit to rostering him in some lineups.
Yeah, you basically said everything I was going to say. I'll just close it out with it said the same thing in the deep dive, basically, that he's cheap enough, and unlike someone like Tyus Jones, Okogie's minutes were not misleading in blowouts. Played 31 minutes last game. Played, good run in almost every quarter in off the bench. Didn't play in overtime, but he's the guy that would get the run here. As we saw, Tyus Jones' minutes came back down a lot in a game that was competitive. So Okogie, yeah, he's going to need the rebound, and he's going to need to knock down the shots that he takes, which won't be a lot, but he's there if you need him. I don't think Rose is a terrible play, but I'm not prioritizing him. And I like Towns, but you like Towns a little more than I do, because I think I have Drummond above him, and that's why we have differences of opinion. All right, we got 10 minutes to go. Let's go ahead and get to these last 3 games. Before we do, though, I want to let you guys know it is still going. That Awesemo 24 days of giveaway, our gift from us to you, because we love you guys, our loyal viewers and lovely viewers and subs and all of that good stuff. And if you're not a premium sub yet, well, here's the easiest way to get yourself a free subscription. All you have to do, and hey, we appreciate the thumbs up if you appreciate our content and like what we're doing. So even if you are a sub already, it means a lot to us, and it helps us exponentially. All you got to do is like the video and comment down below. Leave a comment down below after the show ends, not in the chat, but down below, and you'll be entered to win. This week, what we're doing is pretty awesome. All access monthly premium. So you have access to everything on the site for an entire month for free. Whoever wins, one lucky winner each day in a random drawing. And you can enter as many times as you want on the early bird, on the deep dive, on the live before lock, on the strategy, from A to B, you name it, all of them. So you could be entered 5-6 times a day just by liking the video and commenting down below. And on Christmas Day, we're going to be giving away a all-access annual pass subscription, value of $700. Yes, a full calendar year of content, because we love you guys and we want to give you stuff. You could also, instead of taking a pass, sure, you could go and get merch on our site at shop.awesemo.com, but I would suggest taking the all-access pass. Anyway, the comment so here's what I was thinking, Adam. What do you think about this? Because everyone in the league is sick, and keep it respectful. What is going on that is getting these guys so sick? What do you think, Adam? Why are DeAndre and LeBron and Brokoff? Why is everybody in the league sick right now? If you had to guess,
LA and Atlanta nightclubs.
Okay.
I mean, John Wall's sick now after that Atlanta trip. You have all these the Lakers are sick.
You're so right. Dallas was at the Staples Center yesterday, and they all got sick. They were all hungover. You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. But let's have some fun with it. What have these guys been doing to get them so sick? You could say they ate some bad sushi, whatever you want. What are they doing? The whole team is sick. The whole league is sick right now. Teams dropping like flies at a time. And now we've got LeBron James and company questionable tonight. All you got to do, like and comment on the video. You'll be entered to win. And if you're already a sub, leave a comment anyway, because we enjoy reading them and they're always quite funny. All right, let's move on here. Portland and Utah. I think we can make quick work of this one, Adam. The Utah Jazz, 2-point dogs on the road, 214 total, and Yusuf Nurkic is $6,600 on DraftKings.
Yeah, a couple of really appealing price tags on DraftKings with Nurkic at 6,600, Dame Lillard at 8,500. Lillard, right now we had it, or as of last time I looked at our ownership projections, we had him as the highest owned player on the slate, which at the same price tag or same price point as Kemba and Kyrie. I don't like Lillard more than either of them, so it's pretty easy for me to prioritize them over him. But I think the price tag is still obviously too cheap in that it's Damian Lillard. He's really, really good, and he can obviously outscore that price tag against anyone. But where I'm most interested is in Yusuf Nurkic at only 6,600 on DraftKings, where you can roster the two centers. I just think it's too cheap of a price tag in a spot against Rudy Gobert, where there's no reason to expect him not to be on the floor for the full 30 to 32 minutes that Terry Stotts has been playing him in most competitive games. And he's actually had plenty of success in this matchup on a permanent basis as well. He's faced Utah 5 times since the start of last season. He's averaged 1.35 DraftKings points per minute. Obviously not, the end all be all when you're talking about 5 games and an individual matchup, but just the fact that he has had success here makes me feel even better about him at this price point. So he's the guy that I'm getting to, the only guy I'm getting a lot of from this game.
Me too. And here's me bemoaning the fact that NBA.com stats is still yet to add play type data back into their statistics. It's so frustrating. It's been months now, Adam. Can't stand it. Yeah, Nurkic is my guy. I think Gobert is a nice little low-key option as well, just because his prices come down. But again, I'm not worrying too much about ownership here. Let's talk Sacramento, Memphis quickly, and then close it out with the game that we really need to talk about. Kings and Memphis, another barn burner. Should be a great one. Make sure everyone tunes in here. Kings 2-point favorites on the road, 212 total. I think Conley's a solid play. The guy's just putting up career numbers in usage, assists, you name it. He's looked very good. He came back healthy, played like 37 minutes. That's no concern. And then De'Aaron Fox has had good results here, but Mike Conley's still a good pick and roll defender, still a good defender overall. So I don't love it. And of course, my daily Jaren Jackson is still cheap and still has upside, but J. Michael Green did participate in shoot around. Go ahead. We'll make this quick and close it out with the Pelicans Lakers.
Yeah, Joakim Noah did not participate in shoot around, so I think that does give a boost to Jaren Jackson. It also gives a boost in minutes to Marc Gasol. So I like both of those guys a little bit more than I would assuming Noah's out. If we get news that he's in, I like them a little bit less. But I like Jackson. I like Gasol. I'm with you on Conley. It being a good spot for him. And then on DraftKings at 4,600, don't sleep on Kyle Anderson either. Guard and small forward eligibility, just too cheap of a price tag for a guy that should play, 33, 34 minutes.
I'm not sleeping on Anderson, but he sleepwalks through every single game. So I'd be happy if he woke up tonight. No, you're right. No, he's cheap and he's actually getting the run. So that's what matters. But man, he's a tough one to trust. All right. What do you say we close it out? What's that?
I said, yeah. I mean, I hate Kyle Anderson. He's just cheap.
Yeah, I agree. Want to close it out? Last game here?
Yep.
All right. By the way, don't forget to head over to Yahoo. They still have not filled a lot of these contests, and I don't think they're going to fill. So get in there and use the sign up code AWESOMO to get $30 on any deposit, $30 or more. Lakers, New Orleans. Let's finish it off. 231. That would be a lot. 231.5 total. Lakers 4.5-point favorites here. Danny Green just got ruled out for Toronto. The Lie Before Lock crew can break that down more in depth for you when they come up next. But Danny Green is out for Toronto. Kawhi is in. Ibaka is out. Eddie and Chris are coming up next. Leave you up to lock. LeBron James is questionable. Tyson Chandler questionable. JaVale McGee is out. And both Rondo and Ingram are able to play. Since we don't have a lot of time, I'm going to let you break down this Lakers team. We only have less than 2 minutes, but I think we can get it in. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, with Ingram and Rondo back, it takes a lot of appeal away here because Kuzma's been less productive with Ingram on the floor. LeBron's been less productive. Lonzo's been less productive. Obviously, if LeBron's out, then fire up like all the Lonzo, all the Kuzma, all the Ingram that you can get. But we probably won't know that before lock. So really, really tough for me to prioritize anyone from the Lakers, even though it is a really appealing game. The price tags, I think, are just a little bit higher than they should be. And then on the other side, Anthony Davis missed shoot around. He's sick. He's questionable. Julius Randle is probable. Gentry expects him to play. Julius Randle is one of my favorite plays on the slate. With Mirotic doubtful, I fully expect 36 to 38 minutes from Julius Randle here going against the Lakers in a fast-paced game where Randle can really just do his thing, and then also a depleted Lakers front court doesn't hurt either. So he's one of my favorite plays on the slate. Davis, I think, obviously is a really good play, but with Randle in, it's not the absolute lock that I think it would have been. Not to mention the fact that he is sick and may or may not play. So Julius Randle, easily my favorite play. Tim Frazier at $10 on Yahoo, I think is interesting because he probably won't really get much attention, but he certainly can do well in the spot.
All right. Julius Randle has a higher usage rate than Davis since the start of December when both of them are on the court, 30 to 29%, big time. So Randle is still a very good play, even if Davis plays. We can't give you too much analysis there because we don't have the information, but hopefully it breaks when these Live Before Lock guys come up right now. Last thing I'll say, keep in mind with Danny Green, he's a 13% usage player. It doesn't make a huge difference in usage. It's more so just minutes. So don't assume that a ton of shots are going to be distributed elsewhere. Maybe not as big a deal offensively than people are seeing. But anyway, thanks as always for tuning in. We wish you the best of luck. Have a great Christmas. If we don't see, I think we should on Christmas Eve. But anyway, have a great weekend. Good luck tonight. Hit us with a thumbs up before you head out. Comment down below. What's everyone doing in this league to get them so sick so you can win the free subscriptions on awesomemode.com. We'll see you back here soon on the Deeper Dive. Good luck tonight. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks.
Later, Adam.
See you.